Hi everyone and welcome to StudioJake. This was originally supposed to be a live stream, but because YouTube has decided to ruin the interactive experience between YouTubers and their dashboards, I'm going to have to pre-record and upload this, so StudioJake is a little late today. I'm sorry. That being said, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, share it out, let your friends know about your favorite nerd channel, and don't forget to leave me a nice compliment, and also ring that little bell, because YouTube, apart from ruining how people can do live streams, they're also curating your subscription feed so you don't see things in chronological order anymore. So ring that little bell, that way you get notifications whenever I do live streams, which probably won't be doing much of those anymore, and or do uploads like this. With that in mind, I want you to sit back, relax, and welcome to StudioJake. Alright, welcome back. I know I haven't done the theme song in a while. That's because I was doing live streams. And now YouTube has, or I should say Google, has deleted Google Hangouts. You know, it was kind of their version of Skype. But one of the cool things was I could record live streams through it, and I could have guests on and interview those guests. And I've interviewed some very interesting guests, singers like Kaya Jones and Joe Vila, and actors like Robert Davi, and writers and whatnot, political people. But now I am kind of stuck because YouTube decided to delete something that was actually good, while they're forcing this ridiculous beta studio on us that is just adds 5 extra clicks for every one that the classic studio had. The analytics are all garbled mess, and so on and so forth. And I'm being honest, I'm seriously considering moving to another platform, because this is just absolutely ridiculous. It's dumb and it's pointless. These social media platforms, instead of making things easier for their users, they're making things complicated. And it's such a shame, because YouTube started out where anyone could have a channel. Even people who don't really deserve it could go live, could go viral, and do all these things. And it's really hurting us smaller YouTube channels. And I'm by no means a big channel. I have 300 subscribers. I'm competing against channels that have over 1 million subscribers. But I'm fine with that. I was happy with the setup that they have. But now with Google Hangouts going, I'm going to have to reevaluate how I do interviews and whatnot, which is pretty sad. I think it's kind of pathetic that YouTube is trying to hurt the little guy because of, that little twerp, Carlos Maza, over at Vox, who caused the Vox adpocalypse. He's claiming he's some small YouTuber, but, Vox is backed by Comcast, who gave them millions of dollars, and then he goes on strike. So he can get over it. And quite frankly, YouTube surrendering to all of these guys, that's kind of sad. I mean, come on, that's not where YouTube's bread and butter was. It was with smaller YouTube channels like mine, where they could push them up. But hey, they got a little bit of that dough, and so now they're choosing money over user interface, and that's good for the short term. But I really feel like down the road, that's going to really hurt them. So we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know how it's all going to work out, but needless to say, I am very unhappy, as you could tell by this 3-minute rant that I'm doing. I don't know, and just in the meantime, I'm not sure how I'm going to be doing interviews, so just wait. I'm going to have to reevaluate that whole process, but I'll get back to you on that note. All right, so with that rant over, I want to tell you a story. It was just a calm Thursday here in Los Angeles. I was gearing up to see the Dodgers play some team that I don't care about. Of course, I don't really care about the Dodgers. I'm an Astros fan. But still, just a regular, ordinary day. I've decided to have a conversation with some of my coworkers, and we talked about movies, film, cinema, the movies that make us excited to go to the theater. And you know what? I realized something. I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan. I will admit, the Dark Knight trilogy is what got me into his films, seeing as I'm a big Batman fan. Sometimes I think I'm the only real Batman fan left in existence. But I know that's not true. It's just, I have, when it comes to Batman, I take it very personal. But anyway, I digress. So I tried some of his other films. Memento, amazing film. Insomnia, incredible film. Prestige, he took a boring book and made it exciting. I mean, now that's a filmmaker. Dunkirk, tackling one of the greatest battles in World War II and really showing the love of his country. And so I sent out this tweet, and hang on one second, I'll bring it up to you. And like I said, I'm a big Christopher Nolan fanboy. I love his stuff. I love his works and everything. So I sent out this tweet. Now let's see. For those of you who can't read it, because I know it's probably a little blurry screen on screen, it says, only one visionary director exists today. His name is Christopher Nolan. Now, did I say that there's only been one visionary director, or that was two, there's only been one visionary director of all time? Did I say that there haven't been visionary directors in the past? Did I say there will never be visionary directors? No, of course not. I said that today there's only one visionary director. His name was Christopher Nolan. So my boss, who is Ben Shapiro, he retweeted me, and he has, of course, several hundreds of thousands and perhaps millions of followers on Twitter. And I got attacked by all the fake film buffs who have a letterbox and think that they're important enough to tell me what they think. Now, it's fine. You can disagree with me. People were saying, "Are you?" Some of the replies I were getting were just hysterical, and it just goes to show you how ridiculous Twitter is, because how Twitter really is kind of a bubble. Because all these film fanboys were coming at me, and what cracked me up is the people who are yelling at me with dead directors. But before I go any further, I'm going to read to you the definition of a visionary. So this is from Google's dictionary. So take for what it is. According to this, it's an adjective. A visionary, especially of a person thinking about or planning the future with imagination or wisdom. Or it's a noun, a person with original ideas about what the future will or could be like. So that is the definition of a visionary. Someone who's always looking forward, who's using their imagination. And some people were sending me dead people in my replies. So, like, I was getting, what about Orson Welles? What about Stanley Kubrick? And I'm like, and I said, those people are dead. One of my favorite replies is when people would say, what about Zack Snyder? And I'm like, Zack Snyder is a hack. He's not a visionary. I'm so tired of people talking about Zack Snyder like he's some great director. He's a terrible director. All he does is wrap his awful movies in pretty visuals and then says, oh, look, I'm a visionary. He's not a visionary. He's a terrible filmmaker who is just good with camera tricks and special effects. His movies have no weight. They have crappy dialogue. They're loaded with plot holes. He has these weird, bizarre imagery that's supposed to make it go, oh my gosh, he's such an intellectual. Look at that imagery. Come on now. We're not that. When people say things like that makes me think, oh yeah, no wonder Hollywood thinks people are stupid, of course. But I digress on Zack Snyder. And then people were sending me Rian Johnson. Oh my gosh. He is the second biggest hack in Hollywood. I mean, come on. Looper, really? That's an awful movie. Again, pretty visuals. I guess an okay soundtrack. But he couldn't even direct Bruce Willis and what's his name? All right, who cares? My point is, They were bad actors in that movie. It's come on, guys, come on. Ryan Johnson, the guy who ruined Star Wars. Sure, great special effects, great visuals. Looper has so many plot holes in it. You can put it on a sandwich and call it Swiss cheese. That's how bad it is. Don't get me. And then Darren Aronofsky. No one would care about Darren Aronofsky if his movies didn't have boobs. Let's be real about this. No one would even know about Black Spawn if there wasn't that scene with Mila Kunis and Natalie Portman. No one would care about Mother except, Jennifer Lawrence, flashes the screen. No one would care about any of his films if that was the case. Let's be real. Pi, no one would care about Pi. The only reason people even know about Pi is because people saw Black Swan and thought, "Oh, this guy also directed Pi." No, come on. Don't kid yourselves. No one cares about Darren Aronofsky. The three biggest hacks in Hollywood. Come on. So then people started sending me other names, but they weren't really making cases for why they're visionary. So, for instance, people would send me Steven Spielberg. Sure, the Spielberg of the 90s, he was a visionary director. He was always looking forward. He was always looking for his next best thing. But let's be real. Since Lincoln, that's not really a visionary film. It's a good film. I like Lincoln. It's especially because he did a bunch of stinkers in the early 2000s, like Munich. Lincoln is a good film. Bridge of Spies. It's a fine film, but it's not visionary. Come on, Jurassic Park, The Lost World, um, and Schindler's List. Visionary films, absolutely, 1000%. He was a visionary in those days. He's not anymore. I mean, come on, you're talking about a guy who was making fun of Netflix, and then what does he do? He becomes the mascot for Disney Plus. What a hypocrite! Come on, spare me the visionary gab about Steven Spielberg. Again, fine director, good director. He's made visionary films. He's not a visionary anymore. Same with Guillermo del Toro. Fine, excellent director, but really, we're gonna praise the guy who won Best Picture for Grinding Nemo, as my boss likes to say? Come on, let's be real about it. He's not a visionary director anymore. He was during the days of Pan's Labyrinth. And even Hellboy, I would say the first Hellboy was a visionary film. But come on, let's be real. Come on, I'm going to be saying that a lot. And what was another one people kept saying? Oh, they were sending me all these European directors that no one cares about. I mean that's great. I'm glad in your film class, your film director or your film teacher, he thinks that a bunch of Euro directors. Now, I'm not saying that there are bad European directors. Obviously, Christopher Nolan is a British film director. He's really good. He's really good. Edgar Wright, he's an excellent director. In fact, I think Edgar Wright has the potential to become a visionary director. He's just not there yet. And some of these has-been directors who people were yelling at me in my mentions, they were they could still become visionary directors again, but they've lost their way. They've kind of become like Terrence Malick. What has really Terrence Malick done? I mean, I guess he finally made his Don Quixote movie. Good for him. But really, is that movie really visionary? Maybe when he started it in the 80s. Now, I haven't said that. I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll see it and I'll go, "Oh, I was wrong. Terrence Malick is a visionary director." Because that's what you do. You watch things, you watch film, and then you make an opinion based on that. Now, one of my favorite arguments was there was some 19-year-old loser who I guess was tweeting from his mother's basement or something. And he was naming all these people, and I was saying, and he finally named Zack Snyder, and I said, Zack Snyder is a hack, and he goes, no more than Christopher Nolan. And so then he and I started this back and forth exchange, and he goes, you should watch more foreign film. And so I said, Nolan is from the UK. He didn't reply for a really long time, because I got him, and then he goes, well, yeah, but he's mainly made American cinema. And I said, okay, so John Woo, he was a Hong Kong director who's become a Hollywood director. Does that make him not Chinese anymore? I mean, come on, that's so stupid. But these were the film bros I was dealing with. Now, a few people pointed out to me, quite wisely, that Nolan himself probably wouldn't say that. He would say that there are other visionary directors that inspire him. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Because one thing I do like about Christopher Nolan is he's a very humble man. He's very keen in his craft, and that's really why I think Nolan is the only visionary director. A few people were pointing out, saying, "Well, he uses old techniques." A filmmaking technique is not what makes it visionary. I mean, James Cameron, he used all kinds of new technology when he made Avatar, which was one of the most uninspiring movies of its time. I mean, it stole the plot from Ferngully, The Last Rainforest, an animated film that wasn't even that good. So, I mean, he plagiarized that movie. I'm a little surprised they didn't sue. And of course, obviously, he sprinkled in Pocahontas and The Last Samurai and The Last of the Mohicans. It was totally unoriginal, totally uninspiring, and it was not a visionary picture. Come on, let's be real. It's but Nolan, he's always challenging himself. He's trying new genres. He goes into superhero and comic book films with the Dark Knight trilogy. He explores the mind and Memento and insomnia, how far a person is willing to take to cover their tracks. In Interstellar, he goes through the concept of time, and honestly, Interstellar is his worst film. I will admit that. I don't think that's a visionary film, particularly though that's a Spielberg script. It wasn't really a Nolan script. They basically handed him and Jonathan Nolan, Christopher Nolan's brother, the script and said, "Hey, we already kind of have a budget behind this. Could you do something with it?" And so they kept Spielberg's build up, but then inserted their own stuff. And so that's why it kind of feels like a different film during the first act. But anyway, I digress. In Prestige, he explores, what you see, your eyes. Can they be tricked? Is an illusion, abracadabra. It's all based in sort of that kind of moving forward. And now he's going to explore spies in his new film Tenet, starring Robert Pattinson. Now, one of the things, and that's another thing I like about Nolan, is he likes to get actors who are kind of out of their prime. So Robert Pattinson, he really hasn't done a whole lot since Water for Elephants. I'm not going to talk about Twilight. He's been in a bunch of B movies and indie films, which that's fine. A lot of fine actors do that. I'm not complaining, but this will really be like a telling moment if he was appropriate to play Batman and the Matt Reeves Batman. Because if Nolan can direct Robert Pattinson, and again, I think he gets a bad rap for the Twilight films. His acting in those films were not his fault. He was really just phoning it in. You could tell that from the interviews that he did. So we'll see about that. And Nolan, he works with people like Matthew Modine and Gary Oldman, and even Christian Bale. People forget Christian Bale really wasn't that well known. He kind of had some breakout roles with Equilibrium and American Psycho, but he wasn't like a big name star at the time. But then he grafts in big name stars like Michael Caine, Hugh Jackman, and so on and so forth. A very it's a very visionary way of casting, and it's the same with how he deepens your mind, and he goes for like Inception. It had that Matrix way of messing with your mind, but unlike the Matrix, which was all about are we secretly in a computer, Inception was like, are we really awake or are we sleeping? Very, very excellent themes. Now, some people pointed out Denis Villeneuve, who of course did The Arrival, which is a good film, Blade Runner 2089 or 2089, and he's about to do the Dune remake, and not a reboot, it's a remake. Anyway, here's his problem. He is stuck kind of in one genre, so he's just kind of doing science fiction. Also, really, is he a good example? Blade Runner 2089 was a fine film, but both that and Arrival had severe pacing problems. They were incredibly slow. He lingered on moments that he didn't need to linger on. But a lot of directors, what they do to compensate is they'll linger on on a shot because they think it's aesthetically pleasing, but then they waste time on then they don't waste time on shots that are important, and they just kind of speed those along. Villeneuve wants to have his cake and eat it too, so he makes his films because he wants to show off his visual skills. He has these elongated scenes, but then he doesn't shorten other scenes. So his movies are incredibly slow paced. A few people talked about Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino, visionary, that's kind of laughable. I mean, he remade a kung fu movie, Kill Bill. It's a remake of The Bride with White Hair. He acknowledges this. He kind of treats his actors like crap. Now, I'm not saying that he's what the press has been accusing him of, or, I'm not saying he's a sexist or whatnot or anything, but he kind of does treat them a little poorly. Let's be real. I mean, he kind of abuses them, and not in the sense of it's definitely workplace abuse where he just overworks them and puts them in incredibly dangerous situations when it's not necessary. Let's be real about this. And but really, his films, he just remakes grindhouse films. I'm sorry, that's not visionary. That's remaking things. That's not being a visionary. I will say, a lot of people also mentioned Ridley Scott and James Cameron. Those guys, excellent filmmakers. I'm not gonna say otherwise about that. They're really good, but they're not visionary anymore. James Cameron was visionary at one time. Ridley Scott was visionary at one time, but James Cameron, Avatar really showed how he lost his way, and all the movies he's been producing. Prometheus, come on, not inspiring at all, not visionary, hot garbage. Same with Ridley Scott, who he continues to make good films and sometimes great films, but he's kind of stuck in a box that he hasn't really gotten out of. So that's kind of my case, and like I said, feel free to mention in the comments below and tell me who you think is a visionary director. Am I right? Am I wrong? Now, remember, I'm talking about today. I'm not talking about, of all time. I'm not talking about there never will be a visionary. I just meant right now, active, who's making films. Christopher Nolan is right now the visionary in Hollywood. So that's my take on it. Tell me what you think. Feel free to disagree. I'm always up for a debate. In fact, the best conversations I have were the people who just wanted to have an open debate with me. And that's fine. I'm willing to listen. Now, some people did point out some animated directors. And okay, you have me there. I was really talking about live action films, but if you want to include animation, yes, I do agree that there are some visionary animation directors out there, particularly at Studio Ghibli. I will acknowledge that. I was primarily talking about live action, but yes, I will wave the white flag of surrender if you throw in animation. Anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, ring that little bell so you get notifications. Follow me on Twitter. It's @RealJacobArry. Instagram is also @RealJacobArry. Facebook is Author Jacob Arry. Give that page a like. Head over to my blog, jacobarry.blog. That's JACOBARREY.blog. Subscribe there. You'll get because I do even more stuff. And here it's just a weekly. There I do daily stuff. I review comic books, movies. Now I'm branching into television, and I also do some pop culture news and some top 10 lists and even beyond top 10. So check those out. Also, while you have a chance, head over to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or BookLocker.com and get a copy of my novel, The Seven Royals, All Good Things. It's a fantasy fairy tale story that unites some of your favorite fairy tale characters. The rundown is, in the land of Cray, 7 young royals, Jasher, Philip, Talia, Connor, Rapunzel, James, and Belle, were living peaceful lives until Emperor Midas and the evil Grand Mage Fabius Thorn attacked their lands with their dark army. The Dragon Prince Jasher is put into a frozen sleep while the others are scattered for their protection. 10 years later, Jasher awakens with a mystical blue sword and unites the other 6. Along the way, the royals encounter friends, foes, and unexpected allies as they journey back to retake their homeland. So, that's the gist of it. Check it out. You'll love it. It's a great weekend read. It's great for your teenager and for you to read together. So definitely check that out at all those places. It's available in paperback and ebook formats. So that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.